Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Dota 2 commentary. This is a match from the AMD Premier League Season 2. This is a match between Zenith and Neolution.G7. Neolution Esports G7. And this is in the playoff bracket. This is the main tournament. The prize pool is 30,000 for first place, 1,500 for second place, 500 for third place. Teams like Orange, Vici Gaming, Rattlesnakes are all playing this tournament, so it's a good warm-up for a lot of Southeast Asian teams before heading into TI3. So overall, this promises to be a nice look into a glimpse of the Southeast Asian team, but I'm really looking forward to casting a Zenith game because I really just love casting them. They have such an orthodox playstyle. They have a lot of my favorite players, and they are just really fun to cast in general. And I have not done a cast of them in a long time. And I have not done a cast period in a while. It's been a while, but not too many replays have been coming up. But now the Raid Call D2L finals are coming up relatively soon. And when I say that, I mean today. And then the later bracket matches of this tournament will be coming up. So there's still a lot of casts before TI3 does take place. So I'm looking to get through as much as possible. So hopefully you'll keep supporting me. I'll probably be uploading quite a few of them in the next couple of days. Maybe not so much tomorrow because it's my birthday, but still gonna go over that. And yes, in case any of you were wondering, I am gonna do a techies video. I just need to remember how to actually play techies because I have only played that hero like twice because I just never really liked playing techies, but people want to see him, so I will do what the people want. So Zenith versus Neolution.G7. If I'm not mistaken, I think G7 is from Myanmar, aka Burma. I could be mistaken because Neolution Esports is a Southeast Asian esports company, but they've been most known to sponsor teams from Thailand. So I think this is a Burmese team. I remember G7 played for Burma in the GEST Dota 1 games. Meanwhile, Zenith is from Singapore. And it could be Z, it could be Zenith, who really knows. It's whatever you want to pronounce it as, but we'll go with Zenith for now. So far, pretty much standard picks and bans thus far. We have Visage playing the Triland support, we have Darkseer for the offlane, Nick Assassin most likely going to be support for Neolution.G7, and we have an unorthodox Shadow Demon first ban. You don't usually see that too often, but in the Southeast Asian scene, banning out these very strong versatile supports is a high priority for a lot of teams. But Neolution.G7 going to pick up themselves an Outworld Devourer, so maybe look for Zenith to get rid of the Treant. I know the Asian scene is not really too big on Treant Protector, but he is going to really steamroll the Asian teams if they don't really have any idea how to play against them in TI3. So we'll have to see. Maybe Zenith will give up the tree just so they can have practice playing against it in TI3. So Zenith going to get rid of the Chen, Neolution.G7 going to get rid of the Razor, and I'm a firm believer that Razor is probably one of the best, if not the best, mid lane matchups in the game. So he is going to be banned out by Neolution because Static Link costs next to no mana. He can drain all of Outworld Devourer's damage, even if he does get a lot of plus damage from his Astral Imprisonment. So I'm a pretty big fan of banning out the Razor, and also he does do pretty well against Nyx as well as Outworld Devourer. But Zenith gonna pick themselves up an Earthshaker, so they're gonna get themselves a nice long-range initiation. So right now Zenith do have a lot of range. They have the familiar stuns, they have the Soul Assumption, which does have ridiculously long cast range. They have Fissure, they have Darkseer's range of initiation. He can surge people in, and I feel like Darkseer Earthshaker is just such a tremendous combination because it can really mitigate Earthshaker's main failing, which is his lack of mobility. You can just surge people forward, get a Fissure on lockdown, you can vacuum people into a clustered up area, get the familiar stuns, then go in for an Echo Slam, and most importantly, you can surge Earthshaker forward so you can actually land the Echo Slam, which I think is a really underrated facet of Darkseer Earthshaker. So I really like this synergy that Zenith is going for. The only problem is that Earthshaker is not really the best laning hero, but they do have a Visage on their team, and Visage is just such a sensational tri-lane hero. So I'm not too sure if Zenith will go on the offensive just yet. It's a bit difficult to tell. But considering they banned out two junglers, they have clear inclinations that they probably will go on the offensive just because they banned out those jungle heroes. They don't want to get free support experience in the jungle and have a level 4 Chen come out when they're only level 2 and then just get dominated. So Zenith probably going to go on the offensive, so it looks like it'll be a safe lane Darkseer or perhaps even a mid Darkseer, because I think mid Darkseer does do pretty well against OD because OD can't really run up past his creep blade to cast the Astral Imprisonment, otherwise he'll take too much damage from Ion Shell. And Darkseer, even if he takes a little bit too much harassment, he can just go into the jungle, clear up some camps, and then just go right back to the lane. So I don't know how Zenith will currently lane this. It's looking a bit dubious on this part, but If I had to guess, it would be Earthshaker Visage, aggressive trialing with Darkseer in the safe lane, and Zenith going to pick up themselves a Beastmaster. So this is an interesting choice, because right now Zenith have some really interesting lane compositions if they do decide to go with these lane choices. They could potentially put Beastmaster Soul mid, Darkseer offlane, and then just say, alright, can't do anything in the offlane, go to the jungle, and then just do standard defensive trialing, but I'm more inclined to believe since Zenith is a little bit unorthodox, so they're going to go on the offensive. They're going to put Beastmaster likely in the safe lane, Darkseer mid. This is just a wild prediction on my behalf. I'm not too sure if this is actually what's going to happen, but we're going to have to see what actually pans out. But right now, Zenith, they have a really, really versatile laning phase. They have some good long-range disables. One thing that is a bit annoying for them is that they have 3 melee heroes, so inevitably when they initiate, they're going to likely clump up until Earthshaker or Beastmaster gets a dagger. So that could be a bit of an issue, especially against the likes of Nyx, who does have that AoE stun, and Rubik, of course, throws people with telekinesis and then just chain stuns a bunch of people. But Zenith, they have a really tanky lineup, they have a lot of range, they have a good amount of damage coming their way as well. Neolution getting themselves a bit more versatility so far in their lanes. They have Rubik, Nyx, most likely with the defensive tri lane. Weaver could potentially go solo the offlane, he could also be in the tri position. OD definitely going to meet the solo mid, so right now, it's still a bit difficult to say what the lanes will be for Zenith as well as Neolution. I mean, Neolution can choose to dodge the tri-lane, but Zenith gonna get rid of another jungler in the form of Nature's Prophet. Meanwhile, Neolution gonna get rid of the Luna. An interesting ban, so maybe they really fear that range of initiation? I'm not too sure, but an interesting ban nonetheless. Meanwhile, Zenith going to take a bit of their time. Right now, they do need their tri-lane carry, most likely. Meanwhile, Neolution, they have their mid, they have their supports. They need their own tri-lane carry, or they need their offlane, whether Weaver goes in the offlane or goes in tri-lane. But Zenith going to get themselves a Bloodseeker. Now, we saw this a couple months ago, or actually 4 or 5 months ago. Bloodseeker is really, really strong against Weaver, and he does do pretty well against OD as well, because OD does rely on the spellcast. And Warren is messaging me. What a guy. But yeah, Neolution, we'll see what carry they decide to pick up, because Bloodseeker just owns Weaver's Soul until he gets Liquid Sphere, and Liquid Sphere is such a costly item that it's a bit dubious to see how this will actually shape up. But Neolution gonna pick themselves up a Clanks. I'm not too sure what to think of this. Maybe they want to have an Orchid lockdown against Lex's Darkseer or Earthshaker, but I feel like Clanks is a bit too squishy. They want some sort of trial and carry, but Clanks is not really the best laning trial and carry. Yeah, he's survivable. Yeah, he can do a bit of harassment with the Searing Arrows, but what else can he contribute? I guess they're going to put Clanks in the solo lane, put Weaver in the trial lane, but I'm not too sure if that's going to work out either, because if they do choose to go on the offensive, there's not really too much Weaver can do to farm up, and Weaver will want to get the Liquid Sphere online ASAP, otherwise he'll just get owned for breakfast by this Bloodseeker. So it's a bit of a conundrum that Neolution Esports to G7 are currently in, but I feel like Zenith do have a really nice draft. Again, their main problem is that they have 4 melees, and they will inevitably clump up when push comes to shove. So we just go offline Steam, and then I'll get right back into this. So, we're right back into the game, just gonna fast forward, introducing the players and the teams. Looks like Kenji is playing the Weaver, Leo is playing the Outworld Devourer, Shoti is playing the Clinks, Calais is playing the Nyx Assassin, and Vercat is playing the Rubik, or VR Cat. Meanwhile, on the side of Zenith, we're gonna have Ice playing the Bloodseeker. It's gonna be Ice playing the Earthshaker, Bloody Fat Cat is gonna be playing the Visage. I've got to assume that is... God, I'm just drawing a blank. Oh, it's Freedom playing the Visage. NWP is going to be playing the Beastmaster. I think that's Yamate. I think his initials are NWP, but when I looked at his Steam profile, it just said NWP, so I'm assuming this is Yamate. I can't think of a reason why he wouldn't be Yamate, because he is wearing the Zenith tag. And XY is going to be playing that Darkseer. So right now, just checking out the items, really nothing too out of the ordinary just yet. Poor Man Shield for Bloodseeker has a set of tangos pulled towards him so he can handle himself in the lane a bit better. Beastmaster getting a pretty stable mid lane build, not rushing a bottle or anything like that. Freedom has some sentry wards to spot out the movements of Nyx as well as Weaver as well as Clinks. Well, Nyx not going to be a problem until he hits level 6, but outside of that, he could be an issue. But Zenith, they are indeed going to go with an aggressive tri-lane. They are pushing very aggressively into the enemy team's jungle. And do they have any wards to block off the camps? They have some sentry wards. And they have some observer wards as well. The question is if they're going to place the observer wards to block the camps, or they're going to just place the sentry wards. Meanwhile, I think Neolution.G7 know that Zenith are going to go on the offensive, so they're just going to dodge a Trine, but dodging the Trine isn't really the best against the likes of Darkseer, because Darkseer can just go into the jungle, just get his farm going, even if he is challenged in this defensive safe lane position. Meanwhile, who does Neolution.G7 have to go up against them? A Clinks or a Weaver? I mean, they can't really go to the jungle to farm up, so they're just going to be forced to sit under the tower. And sure, they might get a bit more experience, but they won't get any farm, and these heroes will need a lot of farm against the likes of Zenith's heroes. Because Zenith have a lot of mobility, they have a lot of range, and they have a lot of single target lockdown. So I'm a bit concerned about Neolution.G7. I think they picked up too greedy of a draft to counter up Zenith's draft. I think if Neolution.G7 played a bit more conservatively, OD and Weaver could have potentially carried them to the late game. I don't really see the need for the Clinks pick at all in this game whatsoever. But we're going to have to see if it shapes out to Neolution.G7's expectations, or if Zenith is just going to run away with this game. So, Beastmaster, Earthshaker, Ice, XY, Freedom, all gonna roam into the offensive jungle. Gonna place some wards to block off the pull and probably block off one of these neutral camps to prevent any sort of wards. No, they're just gonna put a very aggressive lane ward and try to spot the movement. Interesting that they're not blocking out the pull camp just yet. I think they probably know that they're going to be facing either Clinks or Weaver in the challenge. Probably Clinks, because Weaver does do better in challenge situations than Clinks. So it looks like it will actually be a defensive challenge versus challenge. Maybe Zenith recognize that Neolution.G7 are going to dodge a challenge. They're going to respond in their own part with their tri-lane on the defensive end and just really screw up Neolution's laning presence, because even the defensive tri-lane, Visage and Earthshaker do a lot of damage and can really zone out heroes like Nyx Assassin, like Rubik. I mean, how will this try and kill anybody with Earthshaker being in the back lines for Zenith? But Beastmaster vs OD, this greatly favors OD, and that's why I was thinking Darkseer could potentially go mid, because I think Darkseer does do a lot better against likes of OD. But this is the dire side. Darkseer would probably go mid if he was on the rain side, so I can clear off that camp. But Beastmaster vs OD, this should be greatly in OD's favor once he does hit level 3. Until that point, Beastmaster has some good armor. He didn't go for the fast bottle, instead he's just getting as much lane sustainability as possible, which I like. He's never going to get enough mana to actually cast his Wild Axes. And Leo is actually going in casting a lot of imprisonments at the very early stages, trying to get as much lane advantage as possible. But he might run out of mana very quickly unless he gets some lucky Essence or procs. And we'll have to see if he is actually going to be that lucky. On the Trial vs. Tron, that's where the majority of the action will likely happen. And you can see Darkseer against Clinks. I guess this is actually favoring Clinks in the long run, because he is actually able to get a little bit more experience, and Darkseer won't be stopped in terms of farm, but at the very least Clinks is getting something instead of nothing. So, I don't know, this laning switch by Zenith is actually helping out Neolution.G7 a bit more than I previously anticipated in the early stages of the game. But Leo, no Essence or procs from what I can see thus far, and he's not really seeing that much intelligence from the Astral Imprisonment. So he's got to be very lucky, and you can see he only has one last hit on OD with 3 imprisonments, so right now he's just getting dominated in mid lane by Beastmaster, whether it be Yamate or somebody else. I think it is Yamate. On the tri-lane, looks like Zenith's just doing some creep pulls. The rain did block off a pull camp, but Zenith just going to do one pull, and we'll see if Nyx Assassin going to go in for the last hit. Could potentially be in a bit of trouble. Here comes the Fissure. I'm not too sure what Nyx is actually thinking. He is definitely going to give it first, but Ice picks up the last hit, and that is going to be a courier upgrade most likely, as Zenith definitely going to be very pleased on how that engagement went. I'm not too sure what Nyx Assassin went up so far. I guess he wanted to get this last hit on the big neutral, but that was way too risky, and you saw the silence come in, preventing the Nyx Assassin from stunning or even popping Spike Carapace, since Nyx Assassin did just hit level 2 at that precise instant. So good coordination by Zenith. Zenith have been on a recent struggle spree recently because Orange has seemed to have their number, but they are still a very creative team, and considering the sort of new nature of this patch, I think they could definitely hold a lot of surprises for a lot of teams in the TI3 group as well as playoff bracket. Darkseer picked up the Soul Ring, has a Ring of Regeneration as well, so is going to likely rush that Mecha. I really don't think he's gonna get a hood because, I mean, more magic damage will nullify Nick's assassin, and that's pretty much it. So he's gonna go for the straight up mecha. Pretty standard for Darkseer these days. Meanwhile, Beastmaster not gonna go for the mecha. It looks like Beastmaster just ball Croy for the moment, as he is just trying to get whatever mana he could possibly use to get the axes. But so far he's not really that lucky. Meanwhile, you can see Leo just not having a good time, has now solidified some of his creep deficit, has 8 to 9, so he is mitigating some of the melee advantage in the middle lane, because of course melee heroes do get slightly more experience from knights than ranged heroes. But meanwhile, initiation is on the top lane. Ice is going to get lifted up in the air, and Ice is actually going to pick up the last hit, going to go back on the offensive. Swarm is going to be very, very annoying, and Kenji trying to go in for the last hit, but decides it's a bit too risky. Only has level 1 Shikuchi, and you can see this trying thus far for Neolution.G7 is just not working out for them. So good lane recognition by Zenith in the end, despite my earlier doubts, and Kenji going to be forced to burn all of the rest of his mana, and Weaver's mana regeneration, even with Lurgan Basilius, going to be pretty slow. So Weaver is going to be very, very, very hard pressed to stay in this lane. So Ice continue to farm up. Man, Zenith Ice and Zenith Ice. That's going to be very, very annoying to deal with. Ice just continue to farm up. It'll be interesting to see what item he decides to rush, because I'm currently not up to date with Bloodseeker's current item builds. We saw in the Navi vs Redefining Madness game, we saw Bloodseeker go for 4 staff first, because that was a 5-4 staff build, or that was no talent to versus Redefining Madness rather. You know, Darkseer getting pretty close to his mecha. Looks like he picked up a Ring of Protection, so it indicates he is going to go for the Tranquil Boots before he picks up the mecha. So, an interesting decision. I don't really think he needs a Ring of Protection so much thus far. Meanwhile, Clinkz continue to farm up, has his own Soul Ring. Not really too sure what to think about this. I guess he just wants to have enough mana so he can spam the Death Pack, but I don't know if Soul Ring is really that necessary. I guess he's just repeatedly using Searing Arrows over and over again, and Clinkz does not have very good mana regeneration himself. So he might run out of Searing Arrow damage very, very soon, and that could mean the creeps could do a bit more damage than otherwise anticipated. Meanwhile, I can see OD starting to regain some of the lane control, and he is forced back, is going to pop his Tranquil Boots, but still he will have to be very, very careful. Meanwhile, Yamate has his bottle, going to likely pick up his boots relatively soon, as Bloodseeker going to have the phase boots delivered towards him relatively soon. But Leo starting to get a bit of the lane control back on his side. Beastmaster is a level ahead of him, but OD just going to get a lot of extra damage. Seems like he's not been lucky enough to get too many Essence Aura procs, but I think that has to be largely attributed to his sort of overuse of Astral Imprisonment in the very early stages. But Yamate going to retreat back to lane. He's level 6, so he might potentially look to set up a gank on either Clinkz or on the top Trine, but you can see this top Trine just having a miserable time. So Weaver ended up going back to base. Ice just dropping items and then picking them up right in front of the Weaver's face, just having some mind games. Ice probably the biggest troll in Dota, as he just does this every day of the week. He thrives on these sort of shenanigans. So he's just playing some mind games here and there. Gonna pick up the Magic Stick. Very, very standard item progression thus far, as Earthshaker staying pretty close to lane. Earthshaker level 4. Visage gonna hit a pretty fast level 5. Meanwhile, you can see the supports on the side of Neolution.G7 just gonna be completely nullified. They have 0 experience, and they're just gonna be very hard pressed to actually create openings to get ganks off. So that's gonna be a bit unfortunate, but this is a risk you take when you go on the offensive trial line. But I don't know if Neolution.G7 necessarily had a choice. I think they had to put Weaver in the offlane or Clinkz in the offlane, or get some sort of better offlane besides Clinkz, and then just run a defensive Trine. Because, yeah, Clinkz is getting farm, but your Trine is, your 3 heroes are essentially doing nothing. You know, Beastmaster just continue to harass with axes. You can see it has no mana to cast Aurora as well as axes, no mana to actually cast Aurora at all. And looks like Leo has been able to get the Essence Aura procs. Keep in mind, Tranquil Boots can potentially proc the Essence Aura. As here comes Darkseer, going to surge himself in, has the Ion Shell, and did pick up the headdress. So it looks like he did decide to forego the Tranquil Boots for the moment. Ring of Protection, maybe he sold it? I'm not too sure. but he's just going to farm up a very, very quick mecha and look for that to just really, really go on defensive as XY. Going to take a lot of damage. One more searing arrow could spell the end of XY. A good rotation by the Rubik, a very, very needed rotation by the Rubik in the end, but this is going to prompt an immediate rebuttal on the top lane. Kenji is being revealed by the Sentry Ward all the while. Zenith, ice, going to go and pop the Rupture and then just go to work the Sentry Ward, not being targeted by the tower. Weaver cursing his ill-gotten luck. This tower going to kill off the Sentry Ward soon, but it still ensured a kill of a Weaver, allowed Ice to pick up 250 gold towards his coffers, and that is just going to be very, very useful towards him, as looks like he is going to go for the 4-staff build. And 4-staff, Bloodseeker. I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm a pretty big fan of it in this game, because one thing you can do against Weaver is he will inevitably go for Lincoln's here, but you can just 4-staff the Lincoln's here and break it, then pop the Blood Rage as well as the Rupture, or you could do some other different combination of those abilities. Weaver just really, really being counterpicked hard in this game, I feel like, as Earthshaker now level 5 has the Fissure mana, and looks like the Dire are going to pick up a relatively easy tower. Meanwhile, Darkseer going to rotate the jungle, knows that Rubik is on the bottom lane. You can see, even with that death, Darkseer is still almost level 9, so he's having a really, really strong showing thus far. Klink's level 9 himself, but he did go for the Soaring, so that's going to slow down his Orchid farm by a decent amount, because Soaring does cost 850 gold, or around that, and that is almost a quarterstaff. But Rubik's rotation was definitely necessary. I'm a bit surprised to see that Rubik is actually not doing any creep pulls, but Darkseer really preventing that from actually happening, because he's pushing wave to such an extent, so if the creeps do even more, any more damage to the tower will actually get in last hit or deny range, and I guess the Radiant are not too keen on losing this tower just yet. But meanwhile, Leo could potentially get initiated in the middle, and here comes a triumphant of Dire heroes. They're going to get the familiar stunts. Will Ice pop the Rupture? No, they are going to save the Rupture for now. They're actually going to expend a Roar in exchange, and they will be able to kill off the OD relatively easily. So Zenith really getting themselves going. Their Beastmasters starting to get a pretty big presence on the map, and Darkseer already has his mecha, but the real story has been Ice, and Bloodseeker has just been going to town on these squishy Neolution.G7 heroes, and he already has his 4-staff, and that's going to use Rupture. It's just going to do a heck of a ton of damage. You know, Klink's gonna get X Freedom in the end. Klink's actually doing quite a bit of damage. His Fissure's gonna come in Ice, just gonna look to usher away Klink's Nomad to follow up that engagement, as Elgato gonna flap his wings back to safety. But Klink's gonna go for the Yasha build. I've never seen a straight up Yasha rush by Klink's. Usually you see Orchid, straight up BKB rush. I mean, Klink's isn't really the best Manta carrier, so I'm not too sure what a Yasha will actually do for him. Because, of course, the Manta Illusions won't get the Searing Arrow bonus, they won't get the Strafe damage bonus. So I'm not too sure what actually Yasha will do for Klink's. It might help him to farm faster. I guess he wants Manta to dispel the Blood Rage, but there's still a lot of other lockdown. You can't just get a Yasha or Manta for the sole reason of dispelling that Blood Rage silence, because there is Roar, there is Surge, they still have Rupture, they still have a lot of range on their side to potentially lock Klink's in place. So I'm a bit confused about this Yasha choice, but meanwhile Klink's gonna take a bit of damage. He will run away from the Sentry Ward relatively easily, as Nick Assassin gonna lift the stun completely. And you can see all 5 of the Neolution.G7 heroes are here on the defense. OD gonna go for that mecha himself, as Fissure gonna come in. Looks like Zenith want to get this tower. Will they be able to get the last hit? No, OD does get the Astral Prison, gonna hold one of the heroes in Zenith in place, but Leo gonna get vacuumed as well as Ruptured. He's gonna take a lot of damage. Darkseer picks up the kill on Rubik. Meanwhile, the engagement still breaking out. OD is the next one to fall. Klink's trying to do whatever he can. Klink's does pick off the Earthshaker, not going to work on Ice, but is going to be slowed down. Does Zenith have any more detection? Medallion going to be used by Yamate. No, he has Arcane Boots instead. Silence going to be used on the Klink's, and this is why he wants the Manta apparently, but he's still going to get hunted down and killed off, and there's really not too much they can do. Actually, Ice going to 4-step himself forward, but recognizes he wouldn't have enough move speed to keep chasing down Nick's Assassin. And Neolution.G7 just in a whole lot of trouble at this stage. It's just not looking pretty for our Burmese heroes. Darkseer gonna rush that fast Ghost Scepter. This is such a smart decision. You don't really see this so early in the game, but I mean, where is Neolution.G7's damage gonna come from? It's gonna come from Klink's auto attacks, it's gonna come from Weaver auto attacks, it's gonna come from OD's Arcane Aura hits. And if you have Ghost Scepter, well, none of that will matter. I mean, Nick's stun, he's level 4. I think you're okay with dealing with the Nick's stun, especially when you already have your mecha. But it seems like Zenith gonna go on the offensive, trying to take the Roshan. Actually, Freedom did pick up the medallion, and they will be able to take this Roshan relatively easily. Ice with the Force Staff. Gonna be interested to see what he actually builds next. Probably won't go for the BKB because I don't think he really necessarily needs BKB, especially at this point in the game. And he has the Aegis, so he might choose to be even more aggressive than he already has been playing. Checking out the gold lead, you can see Zenith just in a huge advantage, and the experience advantage spelling a similar tale. Earthshaker has the arcane boots, has level 6, no surge forward into Echo Slam just yet, but rest assured that will be happening relatively soon. I've got to imagine Beastmaster saving a bit of gold, could potentially be rushing the dagger, could go for Necrobook to help end the game a bit quicker, could also go for the Aghanims, which is a preferred option on Beastmaster these days for that increased range, and just, you know, that shorter cooldown, but mostly it's for the range. You know, Rubik, what spell did he steal? He stole the Wild Axes, and just checking out the Beastmaster skill build, well, it looks relatively standard. Got an extra point to Inner Beast a bit earlier. A lot of people on Beastmaster like to get 3 points in Call of the Wild before they switch back into the Inner Beast, but I guess he doesn't really need that Greater Hawk when everybody's grouped up on his team for the majority of the time. They want to have a bit more attack speed on their side, and they're going to get it, but Clink's going to pick himself up a Haste Rune, and I'm not too sure if he's finished anything, as here comes Roar Initiation. Rupture going to be used as well. OD trapped himself in his own Astral Imprisonment. No, Rubik was actually the one to fall, as Clinks does pick off Earthshaker in the backlines. Clink's going to work, has a Haste Rune, so he can just run amok. OD's Sandy's Eclipse not doing too much of anything, as Weaver going to find himself stunned, so it's going to be an Earthshaker for Rubik. Thus far, Darkseer going to take a bit of harassment. His axe is going to fly through the Familiars, taking quite a bit of damage, and Zenith actually forced to retreat, so Clink's just putting in a lot of work for the Burmese squad. But he's going to have to continue to put more work in. He's finished the Yasha, and I've got to imagine his item will be, I don't know, because Rupture does go through Magical Immunity now, and they have Roar, they have a lot of ways to go through BKB, as Ice will be stalked by the Clinks for the moment. Death Pact will be running out relatively soon. Looks like Show T just going to do a bit of harass and actually almost picked up the last hit. So Yasha doing a bit more work than I gave it credit for. So Neolution.G7 holding on for now. Mecha is going to be delivered to OD relatively soon. That's going to help amplify their team fight by a bit, as Bloodseeker just continue to farm up. Looks like he's saving a lot of gold. Could he potentially be going for the Radiance build on Darkseer or on Bloodseeker? And this would be a relatively reasonable timing on Radiance, especially after the 4-staff Torment Shield and the Phase Boots. But Radiance on Bloodseeker, a lot of people don't like it, but I'm a pretty big advocate of it, because 50 damage per second is just so much damage at this early stage of the game. And once Clinks runs out of Death Pact, he's relatively squishy, all things considered. But looks like Zenith going to go on the offensive. They're going to pop the Roy as well as the Fisher onto Shoti. If they get rid of the Clinks, Astral Imprisonment going to save Clinks' life for the moment. And Zenith going to back off for now. They don't have the Bloodseeker there for the Rupture. They already expand the Roar. They don't want to devote too many of their resources to try to get a failed kill. Or a risky kill at that. But yeah, Radiance Bloodseeker, of course, the best synergy is he's a very strong chaser, and the Bloodbath will just allow his HP to constantly be fueled up, even if he's not hitting any opponents. So I'm a pretty big fan of Radiance Bloodseeker myself, but I don't know, it's Ice. He could potentially go for something like an E-Blade, and nobody would be too bothered by it. Checking out the last hits, you can see Darkseer farming tremendously well. Credit to XY, because even though he has been fighting with this team for the past 5 minutes, he's still topping the CS charts by a healthy margin, and is going to be working his way towards the next time, whatever it may be. I'm not too sure what he'll get. Could potentially go for the Aghanim Scepter. I mean, Darkseer, very versatile hero. Could potentially go for daggers and just blink in with the wall, but I don't know. It's a bit... I don't actually know what Darkseer would go for in this situation. He picked up the straight up Ghost Scepter, so could potentially go for a Hex. I'm just gonna stay safe and go for a Hex. You know, Visage gonna get an item delivered to him. He is gonna have the gem, so there goes a lot of invisible potential on the side of the Radiant. Nyx Assassin's still not even level 6, and you can see his supports on the side of the Radiant really struggling to actually contribute in this game. Rubik trying to do whatever he can, but again, a level 6 Rubik is nothing to be afraid of. Even if he does steal Rupture, Zenith do have the people in place to just stand their ground and just fight. As XY gonna pop the vacuum. Not too sure what that was about. Just gets trying to clear out the creeps and trying to break down these trees, so Beastmaster could get a better opening since he does have that third point to call the wild now, so his Hawk does have better vision. Now Ice up on the high ground looking for an opportunity to fissure, as he will be able to trap the Rubik in place for now. Rubik not going to get initiated on, but this tower will fall. Neolution.G7 can't really actually defend this tower, just being zoned out way too effectively. And Zenith will be able to escape and will look to go for the next engagement as Clinks just continue to farm up. Looks like he is going to go for the BKB. I think he needed to go for this, even if they have Rupture as well as Roar to go through it. There's still Earthshaker, there's still Visage, there's still Darkseer. You kind of need to go for the BKB because Clinks is going to be the vast majority of your DPS, and if he's not doing damage, then Neolution.G7 just simply do not have a chance in hell of actually taking a team fight. And OD's farm has really been restricted quite heavily. You can see he was a mid-soul, and he only has level 9.5. Zenith just out-experiencing the opponents despite being grouped up as a team for the most part. It looks like Rubik going to get back him up on the high ground, and they are going to use a Roar for the last hit. Yamate just wanted to give that extra bit of gold online as the gem was transferred from the Visage to Yamate. So Yamate gonna forego the Blink Dagger, instead gonna rush the Aghanim Scepter. Pretty standard Beastmaster build these days, likes the increased range, likes the shorter cooldown. But again, it's mostly for the increased range. Clinks trying to force a rotation by Zenith, but Zenith probably don't care. No, they are gonna defend the Bloodseeker, or teleport back the Bloodseeker, and Clink's gonna back up his response. He saw the glyph come through, and Ice will be able to finish his Radiance, and there is another huge source of damage potential coming in. Because with the mecha in place, and even though Bloodseeker only has 1k HP, he will probably pick up the next Aegis, and that's when Zenith will likely strike. So this Radiance is going to potentially do a lot of damage, and I'm not too sure if Neolution.G7 currently have the damage output to limit Ice movement. As Clink's trying to farm up, but he could be in for a Rude Awakening. Ice will spot him out. Yamate does have the gem, but does not yet have the Roar, and Clink's will be able to scuttle on out of there relatively freely. XY is going to go for the Hex, so it looks like my random guess could actually come to fruition here. Although this could likely be a Shiva's Guard as well, but he already has Ghost Scepter. I don't really think he needs a Shiva's Guard. I think Hex would probably be a better option since you did go for the second M Ghost Scepter. Ice just going to farm up with that Radiance, hits level 12. And you can see he's going to forego that second point of the Blood Rage for the moment. Might choose to give it up because level 2 gives you the most silence potential with the least amount of damage increase, relatively speaking. But going to get the extra point stats, boost up his HP, and Zenith will be able to take this tower relatively easily. And you can see Zenith as a team, not really that high level, but their sheer presence on the map is just really forcing Neolution.G7 to a very, very limited map mobility position. Clink's gonna have his BKB up for the next major team fight, it looks like, so Clink's could potentially do a lot of damage. You've seen Clink's in these fights be the sole reason why Neolution.G7 is still in this game. And with the BKB, even if you do have Roar, if you have Rupture, Clink's could still do a lot of work because he won't be encumbered by the likes of Earthshaker Fissure or even the Darkseer Vacuum. But keep in mind, Earthshaker Echo Slam is one of the few ultimates that actually does damage through magical immunity. Of course, it's not the secondary echoes, it's just the initial echoes that actually does the damage. But still, every bit of damage against Clink's meager HP pool will prove to be very, very annoying for this Bone Fletcher. Beastmaster, is that a finished Aghanim? It is a finished Aghanim, so he's going to have such good range on his Roar at this stage of the game. 900 range could just completely nullify Clink's, as soon as he approaches the enemy team, Beastmaster will be able to spot him with the Hawk, with his gem, and just roar him, and Clink's really can't do anything about it. But Neolution.G7, they're pretty much doing anything they have to do. They're building tanky items, they're trying to turtle as best they can, they're not giving the enemy team any openings, but they're not creating any openings themselves. I don't know, it might be time to look for a smoke gank to at least try to contest the next Rosh, because you know with Zenith's current level of farm, they will be going to take Rosh and then try to look to end the game ASAP. And I don't know if Neolution.G7 currently have the items and levels that can really contest the base push by Zenith, as XY gonna farm up instead of getting that second point in the wall and got that max level of vacuum as well as the max level of surge online. Maybe he recognizes he could potentially hit level 14 before the fight actually breaks out, but Zenith gonna go work on Rosh, and you can see Neolution.G7 are gonna smoke up. They're looking for engagement, but Zenith currently calmed up, and I think this gank just came a little bit too late. It should have happened a bit early on when Zenith might have been a bit more far spread, but Zenith have been doing a really remarkable job of staying together as a team, because they know the only way they could give up this huge lead is if they just get picked on one by one. So Bloodseeker gonna get the Aegis once again, and the Smoker to see will be popped by Zenith, and currently Neolution have no knowledge that this is happening. Clink's trying to get away as Surge on Beastmaster just simply not enough to catch up to the speedy Clinks. But Yamate won't be too disturbed by this, as actually Bloodseeker force-stepped himself in a bit further to try to potentially get off a Rupture. But Zenith now going to go for a bottom push, and we'll see if Neolution.G7 have what it takes to defend it. They have a Staff of Wizardry on the OD, so the Science Clips will do a bit of extra damage, but it's going to be up to the Ruby to steal up the wall or the Echo Slam and really just decimate Zenith's base push attempt. But Rubik going to have to watch his positioning, and Zenith is probably not going to devote one of those ultimates unless they can for sure catch the Rubik, as Rupture will be applied to the OD. Weaver trying to go work on the Familiar. Silent's going to be cast on ice himself, trying to do as much damage as possible. Here comes Echo Slam. They will kill off the Rubik, and Rubik going to be dead for the next 30 seconds. Darkseer going to kill off the OD. Weaver's going to be the next one to tumble. Clink's going to pop his BKB, trying to go work on Yamate. Will kill off Yamate, but now has to deal with the entirety of Zenith. His 10-second BKB charge, it might be enough to kill off the Aegis. Nice stun by Calais, but the Solar Solution going to clean up the Clinks, so now Ice going to pop this Ghost and trying to escape to safety. We'll be able to kill off the next assassin, and Ice is going to respawn. This will likely be a bottom tier 3 at the very least. They might not get their axe since Neolution.G7 going to respawn relatively soon. Still, that was a 4 for 1, and Aegis definitely favoring Zenith even if they can't pressure this tower. And they haven't even used the wall, so they still have another strong team fight spell in their arsenal. And it looks like the Darks are going to have his Hex up for the next team fight engagement. So Ice, of course Rupture has such a short cooldown now, you can just use it whenever he pleases. And we'll see if Ice is going to charge in bravely with another Rupture attempt. But it looks like Zenith's just going to pop the mecha, back off. They don't want to give Neolution.G7 any extra gold. They're going to defend their towers, wait for Beastmaster to respawn. They want to have that roar. They want to have the attack speed or that inner Beast grants them. And they want to have Beastmaster's utility, and Beastmaster's smartly going to go for a Ghost Scepter. You saw Clinks again is the majority of the DPS on Neolution.G7. So Mass Ghost Scepter is definitely a good way to counteract Clinks' physical damage. I'm not too sure who retrieved the gem. Where is the gem? Oh, looks like they gave it back to Yamate. Maybe the courier picked it up. Not too sure, but Clink's just trying to farm up. It looks like he's trying to split push down a tower potentially, as there might be an attempt on Ice relatively soon. Nyx is Vendetta, but it's only a level 1 Vendetta, and it's going to wear out relatively soon. But Clink's going to spot out Ice movement, and this could help delay the push, but Force Staff to safety by Ice will preserve his life for the moment. Darkseer was able to successfully kill off those Weaver, and Weaver just having a nightmare in this game. If I were Clinks, I'd just look to backdoor this tier 1 tower. I mean, it's full HP, but Strafe with Clinks and Iyasha could potentially bring down this tower to potentially 3/4 HP, or 1/4 HP. Bring down the tower to, well, I think you guys get what I mean. But Darkseer with the Scythe device has the wall, has not yet used it just yet. Echo Slam is back online, and with the Ghost Scepter as well as Surge, he will be able to get in position to actually cast Echo Slam, which is again a huge problem for a lot of Earthshakers. Ice gonna get I'm delivered towards him relatively soon, looks like it's going to be a finished BKB, and that means ISS can pretty much go unhindered. Darkseer does successfully kill off an Assassin. The Familiar is going to stun Rubik in place. Rupture was stolen. The Rubik is going to be cast on XY himself, as XY is taking a lot of damage. Zenith Clip's going to be used, but you can see it did next to nothing to the majority of Zenith's heroes. And I think Zenith will be able to claim the first barracks of the game relatively easily, as they did not use Echo Slam, nor did they use Wall. They only expended Roar and Rupture. So they can look for another team fight relatively soon. Meanwhile, Neolution.G7 expended the Zenith Clips. And meanwhile, Clink's just looking for some sort of opening. He does not want to charge in when he's all by himself, otherwise he knows he could potentially get killed off relatively easy. Meanwhile, Zenith just going to back off, and it looks like they're just going to look to end the game right here, right now, with a mid lane tier 3 push. And we'll have to see if Neolution.G7 have what it takes. I mean, they will be fighting with Clinks this time. He does have a TP. Clink should just probably like buy out something, maybe buy a Javelin, or just, I don't know, sell something and get a Chrysalis. Try to increase his damage by whatever means necessary, as he's trying to save his death pack for as long as possible, it seems like, so he can do as much damage as possible in this team fight. He will have buyback for the next engagement, but an item being delivered towards the Shaker, it's likely going to be the dagger, and that means Shaker can just stay even further back. No, he's just going to get as much HP as possible, and this is a clear indication that Zenith wants to end the game right here, right now. Rupture going to be used. Rubik, I think he did steal Rupture in the end, has not used it just yet. He did steal Rupture, but OD going to be the first one to die. Did use it on the Earthshaker, so Earthshaker was not able to cast the Echo Slam. OD going to buy back, but Ice just going ham. Will look to kill off Kenji, who was hexed up, going to be silenced as well. OD going to get the defensive Astral Imprisonment going, as Yamate looking to go back on the offensive. They will be able to hunt down the Weaver, and Weaver is now at that magical HP marker. Bloodseeker can just kill him off relatively easily. Meanwhile, Nick's Assassin trying to go on the offensive for freedom, but this could be the end of his life. Meanwhile, Clinks, I don't know what he actually did in this fight. He looks like he could not do too much of anything. Beastmaster was able to kill off Nick's Assassin, and I think, yes, this is going to be GG. Zenith going to take this game in convincing fashion with a Bloodseeker choice. Just a really solid early game, just allowed Zenith to steamroll their opponents. And Zenith, once again, using the creative drafts to just really steamroll their opponents with style. But no offense to Neolution.G7, they are not really the most top tier team, so to speak. So some Rupture shenanigans, gonna get the kill on Rubik. So we'll have to see if Zenith's quirkiness can actually allow them to fight out against the best of the teams. They're going to be facing Orange in this tournament, likely later, or VT Gaming, or Rattlesnake. A lot of potential TI3 teams in the making. I mean, Rattlesnake have to qualify. VT Gaming, well, they got beaten by Rattlesnakes, but Orange definitely one of the most powerful teams in the world at the moment. So we're going to see if Zenith can actually recover. But thanks for watching. I'll be back with more AMD Premier League Season 2 games relatively soon, and also the raid called Dota 2 League Finals. So thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.